All right. Good evening. My name is Cecil Gray. This is my week 7 speech for effective communication and presentations, and the title is Walking with Purpose. Human nature is one of the strongest beliefs about who we think we are and how we identify ourselves. And it's thought of as your talents, strengths, passions, your loves. And we all choose to remain consistent on how we define ourselves. Any transformation that we decide to make within ourselves will depend on our own ability to expand our identity. Creating a new set of beliefs can transform you to greatness, because identity is the most important factor that determines your actions. And I believe that tapping into your true identity, you will begin to walk with purpose because you give yourself the power of your full potential. When you think about the phrase, how do I know, most people say, how do I know what? But the real key is not how do I know what, but how do I know why? And I believe that this is critical knowledge for our Cheyenne Arapahoe employees, whether you work for the tribal government or whether you work for a tribal entity or the casinos. And a comedian by the name of Michael Jr. has illustrated this perfectly. So we're going to watch his video next.
How do I know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know, the next thing they say is what? How do I know what? The key really isn't to know what. The key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, can you sing? And then I'm just going to show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director. Yes, sir. All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Wow. That bro could sing. What song was that? All right. Now, what you give it a version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick if you know what version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact walking in or towards purpose?
Okay. I believe that Michael Jr., he really brought home the idea that I have about knowing your purpose, especially as a Cheyenne Arapaho Tribal employee. But one of the things that I believe is important for that is employee engagement. And employee engagement is defined as the emotional and functional commitment an employee has to their organization. Studies show that 71% of employees are not engaged, which leads to high turnover. And $11 billion is lost annually due to turnover. Companies that do have engaged employees outperform those that do not have engaged employees by up to 202%. In order for you to become an effective part of this organization, you have to become engaged. And I believe that the key to that is knowing the history of the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes in our organization, so that you'll fully understand the job that you serve every day, that it has a purpose. So the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes, we have two separate tribes that is federally recognized as one tribe for governance. We originally belonged to the Algonquin linguistic family, which is originally from the Canadian provinces all the way through the Great Lakes region. But while we operate as one tribal government, each tribe does maintain our own culture, traditions, and our own languages. The tribes have always been unified as one for several hundred years. And we've gone through 4 stages of culture over the past 400 years. At first, we were an Eastern Woodlands tribe that lived in permanent villages. We were agriculturalists. We were pottery makers, making wild rice and other crops in the Minnesota, South Dakota area. The second stage, we moved westward with the push of the white settlers, and we began to adopt the plain cultures of the Plains tribes. During the third stage, the Cheyenne, we completely abandoned our farming lifestyles, and the Arapaho as well, and became a fully fledged Plains culture. And we started to rely 100% on buffalo of the Great Plains. And then the fourth and final stage is the reservation stage, which is the stage that we're still currently in. I believe that our people are resilient and that we're survivors. In the mid-1700s, some of the things that we survived is the smallpox epidemic, where the settlers intentionally gave our people smallpox-infected blankets with the purpose of eradicating our people, and they did that with military efficiency. We lost a good portion of our tribal members during that time. In 1849, we survived the cholera epidemic, where a deadly bacteria was in the water, and it killed all but 2,000 to 3,000 Cheyenne Arapaho tribal members. So if you think about the seriousness of that, there were just 2,000 of us at one point back in the mid-1800s. In 1864, we survived the Sand Creek Massacre, where hundreds were slaughtered, mostly women, children, and elders. In 1868, we were sent to Oklahoma. We were camped on our own tribal reservation that was established for us, and we were slaughtered by Colonel George Armstrong Custer, where he massacred over 100 peaceful Cheyenne Arapahos at the camp. In 1877, we survived a malaria outbreak when we did move to Oklahoma, to the reservation that was established for us. We have survived more than a dozen battles with the United States government and over 7 broken treaties. We've survived the buffalo slaughter of the 1860s, where over 60 million buffalo were killed intentionally because they knew that was our only food source and a way to assimilate us to American culture. We survived an abolishment of all tribal governments. There were no tribal governments from 1906 to 1934. And a lot of our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents had to go to boarding schools, and we survived that as well. And the motto of the boarding schools was kill the Indian and save the man, and they did that by taking away our tribal languages and our culture. But still today in 2016, we are victorious. Because in 1937, we established our first tribal constitution. This gave us federal recognition. Our first constitution established 14 Cheyenne and 14 Arapaho committee members to run our tribal government. In 1942, it was revised to include 7 Cheyenne and 7 Arapaho committee members. And then in 1975, it was changed to our current format where we have 4 Cheyenne and 4 Arapaho committee members. And there was also an establishment of 75 needed for a quorum for annual or special tribal council meetings. Today we have a new government structure which was created in 2006. It gave us our current structure of government. We're split into 4 separate tribal branches: the legislative, the executive, the judicial, and tribal council. Today we have 12,700 tribal members. In 1994 we established one of the first casinos in Oklahoma. Today we have 6 casinos and 2 travel centers, and we currently employ over 1,200 employees. During the most recent 2014 and 2015 years, the casinos have generated $41 million and $42 million respectively as gaming profits. That goes back to our tribal government. These gaming revenues have created tribal departments, 8 of them, and then 41 tribal programs, which do provide these direct services back to the tribal members. These revenues also have created $17.8 million to the state of Oklahoma for exclusivity fees, which are intended for education, mental health services, and general operations for the state. So what I ask you to do is to unlock your full potential. Know your strength comes from your own thoughts and your own beliefs. As a Cheyenne Arapaho tribal member, your job does have a purpose. You're part of a large organization with over 1,200 employees and has generated over $83 million in revenue in the past 2 years alone. Have an emotional and functional relationship with our organization. Be engaged. Again, our revenue created 8 tribal departments, 41 tribal programs, and is servicing over 12,700 tribal members. You can transform yourself to greatness because your identity determines your actions. Your what is your job. Your why is helping 12,700 people progress beyond what we have already overcome in the past and what we will overcome in the future. Your why will give you your identity to unlock your full potential as a man or woman of greatness. The end.